There we go. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dan Spearin. I'm the strategic advisor here, and I'm head of startup experience for the Transmedia Zone. And so today we're going to walk you through what we do here as well as what TZ Summer is. I'll give you a bit more of my background a little bit later on, but for right now, I'm here 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, about 9 to 5. And what we do here at the Transmedia Zone is I'm head of your startup experience. So basically, I'm your TZ Alexa. If you have any questions, you come through me. I connect you with other advisors. I connect you to people in the industry. I set up sessions for you. You meet with me bi-weekly. And I'm also running a lot of the calls and things that you do throughout this process. We'll get a deeper dive of what all of this is and how we created it in a second. But for now, I'm going to pivot just to let Emilia King introduce herself because she is the head of Transmedia Zone and will also be working with you in the next 8 weeks.
Hey friends, are we doing our full intros now, Dan? Or
no, just do a quick.
hello?
We'll brag about you later.
Okay, we'll brag about ourselves later. Just a quick hello. So hello. Welcome to our info session.
Okay, so we'll tell you guys a bit more about us in a second, but I just want to get a quick grounding in what's going on here. So here's my fun screen sharing ability. And basically what we're going to take you through is the ability basically to walk from the beginning of the session to the 8 weeks that you're done and everything in between. So for those of you who've never heard of us before, which I assume is quite possibly many of you, this is for you. And for those of you who have, just hang tight and we'll get into the deeper dive questions in just a second. Okay, so here's the fun times of present. Here we go. Everybody can see, give me a hand wave if anybody's having issues. If I cut out or anything, use that chat for Emilia and I. This is our summer program, and it's starting in June. What we do here is an 8-week boot camp. So you get a personalized goals roadmap that we do bespoke with you. So basically you sit down with me, talk about where you're going, what you want to do, what the goals are for the summer, what the goals are for your 8 weeks. You have a strategic advisor session bi-weekly. It can be weekly if you wish it to be. We also built this knowing that we're in COVID times. So we understand people have work, people have kids, people have responsibilities. So if it has to be around your lunch hour, if it has to be later on, if you have to do 2 sessions in 1 week, all of this is okay. If your children want to be on the call, you're more than welcome. We have parents in the zone, all of these things. So you have access to industry talks. We bring in people from the industry. Some of them are media companies. Some of them are people to help you with specific tasks. So for example, we had BuzzFeed, a journalist named Lauren Strapago come in from BuzzFeed to tell you how to pitch a journalist better, whether you're a company or a writer with a project. We had Cam Gordon from Twitter come in and talk about social strategy. We had folks from Hot Dogs come in and tell you about how to do festival. So these are all the things that happen at the Transmedia Zone throughout with access to industry talks, access to the Ryerson community. So if you join the zone, you have access to bring in students. We'll talk to you a bit more about how that works in a second, but basically students can come work for your project. You can do basically advisor sessions with myself and the community. You can have advisor sessions with people who are already in our community. You have access to small little fun perks like Adobe Creative Cloud, for example. So I know as a creator myself, that's a cost that I like off my plate. Access to Ryerson equipment in better days. So I have to put an asterisk on this, unfortunately, right now because of COVID, but we do have access to what the Ryerson film program has. So if you want cameras, equipment, things like that, you have access to that. You also have access to the Allen Slate radio studios if you're a podcaster or something like that. So you could record your podcast trailer or something along those lines, or even talk to them about running some things in your full-blown studio setup. The thing is, once again, caveat right now, COVID, have to be masked on at all times, even people on camera and on mic. So that's a little less exciting in the current climate. You also have access to our research library. So for those of you who are really good at doing these pitches or deep dives, you've got a script about a coroner or a cop or something, and you want some differing research on what's in the marketplace already, what's going on in the greater media environment. We have a great research librarian named Reese, and I'll tell you more about him later on, who will help guide you through that, ratings numbers, et cetera, et cetera. We also are giving a 10-month residency. So after you finish your 8 weeks, you can stay incubated with us for about 10 months. None of this costs money because of the Storyteller Ignite bursary. So it's a high value of stuff, but we do our best to give this to you all for free in the current environment, but it's a virtual cohort for now. So just in case anybody thought they'd have to show up in person, this is definitely happening on Zoom. It's happening Wednesdays at 1, so that's something else to think about. Your 8 weeks are basically this. It's a blueprint for creative success is week 1. We take you through a lean canvas and design things around what things look like for you as a creator. We also take a look, we also just looking at the chat. So yeah, we're going to get into the full after the summer, but also you should know the fall will run very similarly to this. So it will not be hugely different. So week 1 blueprint, we're going to take a modern approach by giving you a look at a creative lean canvas. And a creative lean canvas is a really great tool for writers as well as it is for creative businesses. So any storytellers of kind of any stripe, this is a really great way to set you up on your path, because you're going to keep coming back to this document, whether you're thinking about your press strategy, your social media strategy, or just, wait a minute, how do I, who should I be targeting this pitch to even? So the creative blueprint is really, really helpful in making you understand about where you're going. Week 2 is strategic storytelling for modern storytellers. We're going to think about how design thinking can help you out. We're going to talk about storytelling strategy just in general. And that can deep dive with you. And you can also always email me and ask more specifics about this. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to deep dive every session. Audience matters, building your ideal audience profile. This is something that creators don't do and creative companies don't do very well, in my opinion, and they could do a lot better, especially in Canada, is really understanding who the conversation is with. Who are you talking to? Who is the people that you want to engage with whatever story you're telling, or with whatever project and creative advice that you're giving from your company. So we'll get into how many different styles of companies we have in a second, but this ideal audience profile is something that I think most people should focus a lot more on. The next is the week 4. So we're halfway through our week. We get into storytelling in the cell, meaning you've got to refocus your pitch. Pitching is a huge skill that we're going to do in week 5, but we want you to take a look at what you're going to give in a pitch package, how pitch packages can be effective, how they can kind of fail, what works and what doesn't. We'll take you through a creative 1 sheet. We'll take you through some talks on trailers. And we'll also just give you an overall crash course on remembering that storytelling is important in every aspect of things that you do. One of the things we see here at Transmedia Zone, even when you pitch us, is that your storytelling goes out the window. All of a sudden you become business person and you're pointing to graphs, and we've all of a sudden lost the magic that is, this is interesting and compelling. The energy that you bring to a project that is yourself, a lot of the times, because of nerves and because of all these extraneous things that happen to you, can go out the window. And all of a sudden we're getting into this very TED Talkian way of presenting a PowerPoint slide. And it's not the most engaging thing to watch. Session 5, a pitch lab. So obviously everything we just learned in session 4, we're going to put into practice in week 5. We're going to give you some tips and tricks, including worrying about this lovely frame, because we're all sitting in COVID times for a while longer. If you have to pitch in person, let's talk mics a little bit. Let's talk about what this whole thing means. And then you're going to get a chance to pitch your fellow cohort. We give feedback. They give feedback. Everybody helps each other get better at being engaging and being great at the pitch. 6, my background, you'll find out in a hot second, but has a lot to do with digital creator culture, has a lot to do with YouTube, as well as film and television. But a large part of my life was spent doing social media for things. So why you're doing it wrong. People who hate it, I can guarantee you I can make it work for you. People who love it, I can guarantee you I can make it more efficient for you. It can be a time vampire. We really do a deep dive on how you can do social better. And finally, in week 7, it's the hustle and the side hustle. For most of us who are in this industry, done are the days of this like linear career. You can make an argument in Canada we never really truly had many linear careers, but you have to do a lot of things to not just make money, but to like really be successful, get your name out there, somehow find your niche, somehow find your audience. So that's sort of one of the last weeks of the boot camp is talking about, in this modern media landscape, how do you stand out? How can you more effectively engage an audience and monetize some of those things for yourself, not just as your company, not just as your project, but as you, a creative person. And the final one's called TZ Market. We basically do a market where we role play for you. So whoever you think you're pitching to, Emilia, I, and a couple of folks from our previous cohorts who've done this before, we just did this at 1:00 this afternoon for an hour and a half. We sit and we give you feedback. We pretend that we're your pitch person, that you have to make or break your project, and we give you a bunch of feedback about what could be done better, how does it work, and that's what we do in week 8. And then after that, this interests me a lot, which is what you want to do. So after that, we do this. In the 8 weeks that you're here, we do 4 goals. So the first goal for me is always, let's get something done. Let's just get something that we can get off your plate. Then 2 is, let's solve a knowledge gap. Everybody comes in here with something they don't know. And in 8 weeks, we can solve maybe more than one. But once again, COVID times, life is stressful. Insert me gesturing to the world. This is really hard times. So once again, whatever we can do, light touch. If you're somebody who's powering through this and doing great, we can do more. Let's pick an end of boot camp goal. So at the very first week, we sit down and do these goals. You're going to tell me what you'd like to do and where you'd like to be at the end of this 8 weeks. Then what's next? What's 9 to 10 weeks look like? What's 10 to 20 weeks look like? If you choose to stay with us for the 10-month incubation, let's figure out where are we really headed to. So a lot of our teams ask us, hey, we want you to take us through to pitch. We want to get to network. We want to get to marketplace. We want to do focus groups here. So things that the Transmedia Zone will walk you through in just a second, but we do everything from organizing focus groups of the community for people's projects. So there's a voice smart speaker game for kids that we're going to do a big focus group on in a week from now. We did a podcast listen episode trailer, and everyone got to give feedback to make the pitch better. We do one sheet discussions, website user tests, anything you can really imagine as a creator. That the community will test it for you, give you feedback, so you don't go to public or go to your funders without really having a lot of great feedback from fellow creators and ourselves. So this is where we get into what the Transmedia Zone is. And before we do that, I'll pause. Does anyone have any questions so far just about the summer part of this? And I'm going to just quickly stop my share screen and ask if anybody, do I see any hands? Otherwise, we'll just keep trucking. We will keep plowing through. Our application deadline, all of that 101 is in all of our posts on social, but for right now, it's next Monday at 11:59 p.m. The 10th. So midnight Cinderella time. There it is. But yeah, for all that FAQ, go to our link in all of our bios. You'll see an FAQ page. It hits like all of that stuff. I wanted to kind of get a little bit deeper with you guys today, but if you have any of those questions at the end, we'll reiterate, explain everything. And I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. Okay. We're going to do a quick rundown of this zone, and I'm going to try to make it as fast as possible for you so we can get to more questions. This is me, guys. Hi, I'm Dan Spearin. I am somebody who started out in Canada in television, doing a really, really small show that all of 12 people saw, but then it went to 60 countries and other people saw it, thankfully. But a lot of my work has been on trying to merge digital television, trying to get us to the place we're finally at now in COVID, where we have kind of this new media environment. And my background was bringing the YouTube community together. A lot of it was YouTube Space Toronto I helped organize that. I worked with MySpace because I'm 1,000 years old. I helped co-create and do a lot of things for early stage podcasting ideas that CBC had. I did a CBC radio digital special before they knew what podcasts were. Created the first and only Canadian version of a show for the Young Turks Network on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I've also done two boring usual old media television shows that I produced and created myself, as well as creating a couple of talk shows along the way. So podcasting, film, and right now I'm in last year, my production partner was in the Hot Docs coordinator, Hot Docs accelerator, I should say, working on a feature that we're hoping to put together about the YouTube algorithm turning everyone into Nazis. So light fare, you know. A lot of my background's in comedy. I started out as a stand-up. You'll get to know me really well here. And now I'm going to pivot to Dr. Emilia King, who is the co-director of engagement at the Creative Innovation Studio. She's going to just run you through what the Transmedia Zone was created for, what it's about herself, and I'm heading it over to you. Here you go.
Oh, thanks, Dan. All right. Hello again, everybody. So as you heard, my name is Emilia King. In my Ryerson hat, I oversee the Transmedia Zone, and I'm the co-director of engagement at the Creative Innovation Studio, which is kind of like the parent org of the Transmedia Zone. It's like the home base for two other creative zones, aka incubators at Ryerson. All right, outside of Ryerson, I am the co-founder of a little production company called Pink Moon Studio. It's an end-to-end production company, and we create really distinctive and sort of out-of-the-box content with a unique point of view. We've got two divisions. We have an original side as well as a client-facing side, but I would say the through line between everything we're kind of doing is that our content pushes the envelope in some way and challenges the status quo. On the client-facing side, my company, we've worked with, some of Canada's most interesting brands, I would say, most experimental brands even. And on our original side, we are currently in post on our first scripted feature film called Lean Out. That is a crazy story. We are in production on a podcast with Frequency Network, a true crime hybrid scripted, unscripted podcast about this crazy serial romance con artist who has duped Canadian women out of over $1 million. He's still free. We just secured funding on another documentary feature, this time about racism, the hidden history of racism in Canada. With my research, my PhD, I looked at the opportunities and challenges for Canadian web series creators specifically to kind of launch their work. So what are the opportunities and challenges there to kind of game the system and the algorithms? What does diversity behind the screen look like in these kinds of series where there's no formal gatekeepers? I'm currently the chair of the Independent Production Fund, which is a pretty big fund here in Canada for web series specifically. So I really, really know that world. And I'm also the former president of the Independent Web Creators of Canada, and that's how I met Dan. So some of my expertise, independent production and management, bootstrapping, marketing strategy, pitch strategy, will come and jam creatively and all that kind of fun stuff. So anyways, really high level, quick rundown of who I am and how I kind of foresee working with all of you. Okay, so Transmedia Zone. We know we are currently living in an era that has an insane focus on numbers, right? Numbers, KPIs, connectedness, stats, algorithms, growth hacking, all of that kind of stuff. And I think we recognize that, for a lot of artists and creators, that's either of no interest or really unintuitive or just downright intimidating. But the thing is, in order to succeed as an indie artist or creator in 2021, especially in Canada, you have to understand really that side of your practice, right? And in fact, see it as a major opportunity to give yourself a leg up and rise above all the other noise that's out there. So I would say that our core mission here at Transmedia Zone is to help artists and creators think like entrepreneurs, right? We want you to succeed. And that means taking the best of the business world and, the best of what came out of Silicon Valley, obviously minus the broiness and the toxic masculinity, and applying it in a way that makes sense for you, right? And really allows you to kind of reverse engineer your path to success by understanding the lay of the land so you can design your moves intentionally and then create a ladder that's specially designed for you and for your own success. All right, so next slide. Anyway, what you're going to see really, really quickly, that the most important, the best and most sort of important part of being with us is really the community. That's where everything kind of comes to life. We're going to become friends. This will become your sort of refuge and creative safe space, your sounding board where there are no bad ideas. And we know the thing with being a creator in, this era is that you're often working alone and you don't get that consistent sounding board of peers to work together who care about your project and know it. And we want to be that place for you. That also means we're going to have some crazy debates and other interesting conversations, and we're going to get messy and into the weeds. But essentially, our programming is very intimate and bespoke, and we really get to know you, and we really try to accelerate your goals, whatever those might be. All right, next thing. Okay, when you come to the Transmedia Zone, you are going to become part of a larger ecosystem here at Ryerson, which has, I think, 10 current zones, which is just Ryerson speak for incubators, and they are all discipline focused. But it's a really interesting thing to be part of this ecosystem because there are opportunities that kind of cross connect. There's different grants that you would now be eligible for, different sorts of funds, just because you are part of that zone community. All right, Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm just going to talk a bit about some of the storytellers that we currently have here. So you probably saw our Facebook, social media, Instagram, Twitter posts talking about the kinds of projects that belong here. But if you didn't, if you're an innovative storyteller, if you're pushing the boundaries of storytelling, if you're representing folks that don't have traditional representation on screens, if you're trying something new, we really want you to come and join us here. This was built by Emilia and I, who worked in this new wave. Digital cable kind of collapsed, and we got, as a younger millennial generation, sort of not incubated as well as we could have. We've seen amazing leaps and bounds with all of this in the last few years. I think people themselves are doing great work, but we got lucky that Ryerson is giving us a chance to put this together for you, because panels are great, workshops are awesome, Facebook groups are the best for sourcing, but it's nice to meet in person. It's nice to work with people for a full year and have structure on your goals. So these folks came from us. This is some of our alumni. This is some of the people who are here now. So Talk Media is an interactive journalism company that do live events. They do live journalism. They're trying to figure out how to get journalism in front of people more theatrically to make them feel part of the stories that are local to them. Answer in Progress has about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, does explainer content, and is trying to prove that YouTube can be a place for education and interesting things that isn't just about yelling and screaming at each other, or making sure we fill swimming pools with as much Jello as possible. Yellow Let's Talk has done something really amazing. They brought Arab identifying millennials and Gen Zers together via Instagram and live events. They have about 1,000 people, I think, just at their Clubhouse Valentine's Day event in February. Films with a Cause is looking to better representation in the industry by putting on events, as well as they have they're working behind the scenes right now to try to figure out a really smart and effective way to better storytelling by doing consultations and by making sure early stages of film and television thinks about these things in a design thinking approach that we'll talk about here as well at Transmedia Zone. Gladiatron's a really great video game, like web comic / video game that's working on right now. It's one of our favorite user testing sessions because Gavin comes in and we all get to watch a video game behind the scenes, and you don't get to see that very often for people. So people who are not as well versed in video game creation but love playing them love to watch Gavin be like, what do you guys think I should do at this level? And you get to give feedback. Inappropriate Questions is now a podcast that came from Transmedia Zone, is now on CBC Radio podcasts, of course. Science Everywhere pivoted from being this great in-person company that did a lot of different segments on Daily Planet and did a lot of different television segments, works with the CBC and the Nature of Things podcast, and now has a great app that does kind of a would you rather game that makes you think about world issues in a bigger way, daily issues in a funnier way. It's a real great project. Word Bomb came from us and went to TVO. It's a podcast as well. Radical Gossip is a vodcast. They have my favorite tagline, which is, sipping tea and talking about the revolution. Three young Black creators that are just doing some awesome work. So all of these things, depending on what you have, we're a little podcast heavy now. Doesn't mean that we don't take more podcasts, but it's just COVID. Obviously, it's the one thing that was very easy to run with. But anything that really involves storytelling, you can be a media company, for example, or you can be a storyteller working on a project. Some of the people in our zone, TIFF Next Wave, they've been funded by Toronto Arts Councils and Canada Arts Councils, new and noteworthy iTunes podcast acquired, like I said, two plays, another team of ours working on a video game that represented Canada at Red Bull Basement. We have a straight up documentary for those of you who might be panicking, being like, none of this sounds like just old school content. Mum's a Word was a breakthrough program at the Doc Institute. Earbank and Talk Media got selected by a Google News initiative. As you can tell, this is our humble brag slide. And we've got a lot of different projects doing amazing things, and we're looking forward to you seeing some of them. A lot of the things that we're really good at here too is people might have success in their current medium, but they want to do something bigger. We have an author here who's written 3 books, wants to do a documentary podcast. We have folks who have been great at YouTube. They want to go into television, become maybe a production company. We've got folks who started out doing VR films, realized that the market for VR films, once you get to festivals, isn't that great. So they became their own Netflix. And Controverse is doing really great at that. Films with a Cause is trying to change the industry. Bridging the Gap is trying to change the industry. So we're trying to create more equitable, sustainable storytelling future in Canada. We must incubate it first. You won't be able to see this in my gamer lit room, but I have a sign in the back here that says build slow and make things. And the reason why is that what Emilia was talking about before is, I came up and worked with Google and MySpace and all of those things, but there's a lot of great things that come out of that. There's a lot of cool ways of thinking of things, but there was a lot of toxic and bad things that came out of it. And so we think disruption can be more than just tech disruption. It can be the disruption of the old ways. It can be disruption of things that we're bored of seeing, that we want to see new and creative ways of thinking. And we want to see representation we've never seen before and stories that deserve to be told. So that's what we're here for. That's what we want to support. And that's who's in our community. And so people who are putting community first storytelling, doing things that really think about impact, think about deeper dives of communities. I told you about Y'all Let's Talk and trying to show representation for and have real conversations within their community for millennial and Gen Z identifying Arab folks. But Understatement Pictures is doing something really cool too. Paulina is a filmmaker who's working with a woman, trans woman transitioning later in life, which we don't see a ton of those stories, but she's working on a new model of impact producing. So like, can some of that money that she's using that she got for grant funding is helping the surgery of her subject? There's a lot of different ways that we have innovative and different approaches here. So the final thing is Ryerson Community helps you with your project. So we have this thing where we have various ways that students can join your project and help you out. We have various ways you can get help from the rest of the Ryerson community, like Emilia talked about with the zone learning. So there's something called Startup School here. There's a bunch of recorded seminars you can access at any point. We'll do speed networking events twice a year where students who are interested in joining up for projects get to meet you. You get to meet with them. You tell us who you think you'd like to work with. They tell us who they like to work with. We match you based on those conversations. And like I said to you before, Ryerson Research Library is a great resource. So if you want to book a research appointment, Ryerson's librarian, Reese Steinberg, will take you through that. Whether that's, market research, industry research, all those things. And as Emilia talked about, one of the different things you can join is apply for, I should say, is MyTax Research. So MyTax has a fund that gives people in R&D projects in collaboration with university or colleges money. Basically, it's a really nice way to do it. So we have a team right now working on an AR game, and it's actually a way for speech therapists to hear what a child's voice problems are. So it actually kind of opens up like a Pokemon Go sort of thing. There's all these different creatures, and the way they talk into something, the way they do something into this app actually helps with the science behind what could be possibly wrong with their vocal cords, et cetera, et cetera. So the point of this whole thing is that she can get money from my tax, who will give her research money to find out more about her topic of interest. So that's one example of it. Another project I was a couple years ago got my tax funding for research into fan-based ideas. So it's basically a QR code that worked on products that opened up a whole other world of fan engagement, and they were able to get money to look at audience engagement and how that worked and do things like that. So different ways to use the Ryerson community. And I'm going to stop us there because I'm sure you've heard my voice far too much now. And we'll get into 101 questions. So I'm going to open this up to the floor. First of all, if you didn't see my post, it does not cost money, which I know is going to be everybody's like, what is the price of this? We have a bursary that we can give out. So it's only about 8 to 10 creators we can take on per cohort because of that. But it's still a great place to look at. So can we talk a little bit more about the digital creators aspect of the Transmedia Zone? I'm interested, but I'm still not sure what that entails, as it doesn't seem like a traditional project. Yeah, so it's funny you said that because most of our teams are like, this sounds too traditional, maybe we can't join you. So I feel like the thing that we try to do is it's really important for us to have multiple styles of creators in the zone working together. One of the things I found when I was working at TO Webfest with Emilia, when I was running, Google and I did these events, we did something called the Canadian Collab Project. YouTubers don't talk to podcasters. They don't talk to television folks. In Canada is one of the greatest Facebook groups you can join because I feel like a lot of people are there in that space and they can jump into the comment sections and talk to you about things. So this is kind of what this is, trying to get people together. So for digital creators, everybody does the same boot camp. Everybody runs their own roadmap differently. So for example, which the creators in the zone that are like YouTube, we talk everything from strategy, headlines, thumbnails. We talk about titling. We talk about why live streams can work, why their social media could be better, why newsletters and getting an actual email base is really important for them, what things they could be doing, how they could better be using their time management. I go through a thing that we used to do at YouTube School with a lot of creators that makes a lot of sense for Twitch streamers and as well as TikTok, where it's just this big giant circle of time management and talking about how you effectively attack each side of digital creation. So for example, most people are not using their time very effectively in those spaces. And we talk to you a lot about how to prioritize the things of digital creator life. A lot of people spend hours upon hours on one specific part of it, and it doesn't really pay out. So it's very bespoke. So this program is designed because every storyteller is really different. We all work differently. So it's mostly designed to try to take your project and do the right thing for you, to connect you to the right people. So we have a list of advisors that we're actually updating right now for the new summer ProHeart in the next year or so, virtual times. And that will be part of your journey. So after 8 weeks, it's like, okay, who do you want to talk to in the space? So if you're a YouTuber, if you're trying to do a TikTok, we kind of run that. So the thing that you're like, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't maybe sound like a traditional story, is like script and stuff and storytelling. I actually think that the problem is we don't think of YouTubers and TikTok artists and folks who are doing short form content as storytellers, and they really are. We can do this in a separate session one day, but like 3-act structure is a part of every video you ever see. It's just not written, once upon a time. But almost any video you can show me, whether it's somebody has a 3-act structure to it or has a 5-act structure to it, depending on how long the video is. There's no age limit. There's no restrictions. You can be from anywhere. You can join us at any point in terms of, if you start at the beginning of the cohort and then you end the cohort and you have to like go away for a bit, you're here for a year. We're not policing you on a week-to-week basis or anything. There's no age restrictions on things like that. As Amelia said, our cohort last summer went from 17 to like 55, and it could go from 17 to 99.
Or 110,
We're
if
giving
that's
that.
how
No, I
we
want to
do
give
it.
the Centurions some time out, so let them
No,
breathe
no,
for a
no.
while.
Right.
No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, Amelia's right. It really, we have no restrictions. The program for students is the catch. And the reason why I say that is time management, 100%. So that's a decision for you personally. What happens after you do your 8 weeks is then you're on your own timeline, and we run Monday sessions and just random sessions that keep running. So a lot of our teams that were here last summer might show up to some of your boot camps because they weren't ready for, say, media training that we do a session on, or they might not be ready for last year, but now they are. So you'll kind of come join us and probably boomerang back and join us again at some points. For the fall, once you go through the 8 weeks, it's not weekly programming that you have to come to. It's like it's a sort of a situation where we let you jump into the fray when you wish to jump into the fray, but you have to check in with us to be like meeting your goals. The reason is it's competitive, and we want people to come to this and get the
Yes.
most out of it. So if people start to like kind of walk away from their project or decide they don't want to do something anymore, we really ask you to be honest and upfront with us, because you're taking somebody else's space who could really be using the support, and that could really be using the help. So we just ask everybody to be upfront. Things happen. Sometimes projects just don't work out halfway through. Sometimes things don't always work, but time management's kind of on you. We only ask an hour of your time for the boot camp, and then after that it's bespoke. So there's events happening all the time. You can come to them. You don't have to come to them. How is the
And
program? Yeah.
no, there's another question that I got accidental direct message. So it says, can you give us an example of a
Oh,
feature and or TV show where you've worked with creators towards getting their material on screen? I would say for that, our most, let's say, recent examples, probably Controverstan. So they are in the world of cinematic VR, and they ended up getting their a CSA nomination for that project. And another one would be Cherrydale. So that's Sarah Shelson's little production company. She ended up getting funding from the Canada Media Fund to produce a web series. And then wasn't that in partnership with Chorus later on?
yeah, it
I
was a
can't
chorus
remember.
deal. It was chorus.
Okay.
Yeah. So to talk about screen. So for example, like Paulina's got who's Understatement Pictures, is working on a feature film doc and has gone through the marketplace and is just finishing her edit. She's working on 2 films right now, one of which is as I said, both are fully funded, but that's sort of working on strategy. So that'll be right now editing help, and then it goes to um like festival help, connecting people with what their fest strategy is. Yasmin Kanji just went to
Yeah.
TIFF next way with her short. So from Minura with Love, I think was the title of that. I apologize if I mess it
Could
up,
be though.
Yasmin, wherever you are.
I think the main thing to take away from the programming side of it is those first 8 weeks, those are like foundational core things that the Transmedia Zone thinks every storyteller in Canada needs to have sort of in their arsenal, tools and resources.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, everything else is very, very bespoke. Beyond just, I'm producing a film in Canada, it's more like, I'm this age at this stage in my career doing this and this and that. And then we devise your ultimate plan and help get you to the next stage, whatever that is for you.
And a lot of that's speakers that come into the zone too, that we try to have consistently. Like, so Hot Docs was here a couple weeks ago and talking about festival strategy, how to get the most out of Hot Docs, like how to contact their people if you're running that. But it was also general advice that like obviously pertains to festivals that aren't just Hot Docs. So Stephanie MacArthur was really great in giving people advice, and you kind of sit down and we run those very Q&A style, because I've been on the other side of it as a creator, and I hate going to things where people just yak. Irony here. But there's a lot of that in the industry where you listen to somebody talking, just like, I just want to ask a specific question. We run it so the specific questions are how the event runs. And so there's a few other answers with that we can do a deeper dive on, but It depends what stage you're at, and it depends what you want to do. And all of these things are up to you and how you pitch us. Some people go from napkin straight to screen. So for example, Sarah Shelson's deal with chorus went from napkin straight to screen. Some people are already halfway through their process. Yasmin was halfway through her process with the film that got on the TIFF Next Wave. Can you work on multiple projects? You sure can, but you have to pitch one project to us. So once you get into the zone, we want you to focus on one project with us,
With
but
us.
caveat, you're a human and we treat you as such. So you're not just like creator of X project. So I'll give you an example of that. Tamer Agagor is somebody who did a podcast called Traveling While Arab. He had terrible experiences traveling while Arab, decided to do a podcast interviewing other Arab folks about these experiences. Randomly came into us, COVID happens. He gets really into Twitch streaming, is now a Twitch streamer as well. Also shows up to events, talks about his Twitch stream, asks questions about Twitch, we do strategy around Twitch. So once you get into the zone, you run the boot camp with one project, you start to work on that project. We understand, like we said, side hustle, linear careers are hard to come by now. So you are in this place as a creator, but your roadmap's designed for like a specific project. But we don't, as we said, we don't police you. No one's in a meeting being like, don't ask questions about your podcast. You're here for film. No one does that. Yeah. So I'm just trying to see. Did that answer your questions for people who ask questions, by the way?
Wait, what about the development stage one? Did we answer that?
I don't know.
What stage of development does the project need to be at?
Sorry, Catherine, I didn't see that. That's a very good question. And as I kind of touched on it, but we can talk more about it. So people go from napkin, as I said, all the way through. Some people can come to us and just go, hey, I'm almost at festival time for a film, or hey, I'm almost at pitch time. I want to run this through to network and get help. So I want to get your help on the social media aspect of the marketing aspect, or some people want the full time. This is a longer conversation that's sort of very specific to each creator, but people, so for example, I showed you guys Science Everywhere. Science Everywhere has been for 3 years doing multiple things. Anthony Morgan has been here for a while. We don't necessarily pull the plug on you at 10 months. We don't say, hey, it's over, thanks for the 10 months. So we can arrange you for stay longer if you hit another stage that you want to go to. So for us, what we're looking for in the pitch, and this is when we'll talk about the pitch, I'm looking for why you, and Emilia's looking for the same thing. We're looking for like, what makes your project stand out from the pack? What makes your project, so when you go to that application form and you look at the questions that you're given, what we're really looking for you is to tell you, what is your project? Why is it different? What makes you the perfect person to tell the story or to lead it? And do you have some sort of plan on what you want to do with it, what we can do for you, and what you want to get out of this 8 weeks? We kind of flip the question back on you sometimes and say, like, what do you want out of this experience? Because I don't want to waste your time. Emilia doesn't want to waste your time. If we think you're better off at CFC, or we think this makes more sense to go to Hot Docs Podcast Accelerator, we'll say, wait, this makes more sense for this other project. But most of the times we think we can help you out. And a lot of the times our creators are in other. So Yasmin is in this year's podcast, Hot Docs Filmmaker Accelerator. Last year, Paulina was in theirs. Laura and Shiloh from 2 podcasts we have right now, we're in the Hot Docs Podcast Accelerator. Talent is talent in this country. And, this is what kind of happened. So that kind of answers the question of stage of development. It's really about the pitch and do we see potential in it, and can we find ways to help you? If we really feel like, oh, we could really, really help you with this, it can be really early stages. You'll get more out of the boot camp in the now if you're a little bit farther along the napkin stage. But as I said, because it's a year-round program, what you might just happen is you might really start to focus on your early stage stuff that we do in the boot camp. And then the later stages, you might just put an asterisk on and come back and redo them in the fall, let's say. You'll come back and like, I'm going to sit in on this session. Do you mind? I'm like, nope, not at all. Remember how you do things. Off topic, if we don't have a project in mind right now, but it's still interested in getting involved, would that be through student memberships? Yeah. If you're a student, also you can reach out to me. Also, we have a bunch of student initiatives. So if you're a Ryerson student, there's a bunch of different ways to engage. So I would suggest just emailing me, setting up a call, and I'll walk you through like, what are your interests? I do a lot of calls with students who want answers in general about like mapping of the industry and all those kinds of things. So yeah, I'm just repeating things that Emilia's already typed in the chat. Okay, wait. If your project is narrative-based scripted, is it acceptable to devote a 4 or 5 sentence idea summary in your application primarily to a synopsis of your story, or is it more important to highlight how you intend to use your chosen medium to tell a story in a unique way? It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
We want to know the actual story, but we also want to know what you're doing with it. I also don't want you to get too caught up in the transmedia element of it all, so that's a whole longer story. To be honest with you, we
want to change our name.
we really do want to change the name of the zone. Small baby steps. The zone was named in 2013 when that was more of a hip word. Emilia and I will tell you our careers, like everything's been transmedia because we live in the modern world. So don't get too tripped up by I'm not living in 15 different places. I'm the medium is the message, Marshall McLuhan style. We don't have to go there. Just work on the storyteller and who you are as a person and why you're right for telling this specific story and what your strategy is for like what you need.
And the thing too is it's knowing why the format you've chosen is the right format and medium for your particular story that you're telling, right? If it's a podcast, why does that need to be a podcast? Or why is the way you're telling it conducive to the podcasting format versus why isn't this a feature film or why isn't this a web series, right? It's using the format not as a gimmick, but because it needs to be told that way to make it the best and most interesting story. Okay, we have another question.
Okay, great. Yeah. Could 2 members of a collective pick 2 different projects to work on and apply as one collective, therefore leaving spots open? Does that question make sense? Technically, it does. It's never happened before, so you would be groundbreakers. It's never happened before. I would honestly have to say we would have to take a look at that and talk to you specifically about it. I've never seen somebody tag team. Here's what's on. Let me answer this in a different way because I've had a couple people, can I apply with 2 projects? When we do our assessment for who can get in, one of the big things for us is, do you have a team behind you or do you have a handle on the project where you're not going to burn out? One of the things we've seen a lot in creator, we worry about creator mental health here. People take on way too much. They take on stuff that they can't do alone, and we'll say to you point blank, this needs maybe not a co-creator, but this needs some structural support to it. If you're pitching something that's doable as a singular writer, something like that, that's a little bit different. Like podcasters come in a lot of times by themselves, but in actual saying that out loud, the 2 podcasts we've seen get picked up were teams. So it really helps to have people on your side. So what I guess I'm getting at is, we don't love the idea of you putting yourselves in a place where you're splitting your attention or spreading yourselves too thin. So it won't go a knock against you if you come up with 2 really great pitch presentations to say like, or one big presentation that's like, this is how we're going to handle both of these things. But to me, most creators I know, most people who are successful can't balance on their own with no money 2 projects at the same time. They just don't usually end up going anywhere. Usually you have to focus on one. Not saying it's impossible, but it would have to be an impressive pitch for us to like feel like you're going to split your time equally effectively and get the projects off the ground. It's 100% possible that you have that pitch, but we have not seen it. Like a series and a feature at the same time in Canada, I mean, or even to pitch to America, if you have the connections, if you have a plan, sure. In general, I probably would say it sounds like something that we would be very wary of, because of the amount of work it takes just to get one of those things to market. Once again, anything's possible. Anything is possible. So just, talk to us about it. Once again, everyone can book a call with me even before you enter your thing if you want to just go over anything specific. Or you can email us and DM us if you have specific questions that, like, you know, if you don't want to do it right here, right now. I don't mind staying a few minutes over for anybody who has questions. I know we're coming up to 5 o'clock. I am just going to let you all be distracted by Emilia's dog for a second.
He's a mascot. Yeah.
Yes, the TZ mascot. I'm just going to quickly go through the form with everybody. Because I just want you to be able to understand what we want. And the one thing I also want to touch on is when you pitch. So what happens is you fill out the form gets to us, we look it over, we talk about it. All of this, by the way, is in the FAQ stuff in our Instagram. You either look at our stories, pinned stories, or you can look in the grid, or you can look in the bio because the grid post is linked. But you do that, and you fill out the form. We look at the form. We invite a good portion of the people that we think are ready to be incubated and helped. We bring you into a pitch. You do about 5 minutes for us on Zoom. It's us, and then it's creators from the our cohort and creators from the industry, from the Creative Innovation Studio. We try to make the room as diverse as humanly possible. We try to make the selection process as transparent as humanly possible for you all. It's not just two white folks that are getting to decide your fate. It's a lot of those conversations will be had in the jury selection process, and you book a call after if you wish to find out what happened if you didn't get in. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to, and we can do conversations around how we can help you even to the next project, or how we can help you level up your pitch. Like, we really are here for you as creators. Like, we don't want this to be difficult. We don't want to be like mysterious. I hate going into these pitches for some of these cohorts, and they're like, part of the process is you figuring out the application form. I'm like, no, why is that part of the process? That's not great storytelling. This is just admin work. So
the thing I would add to that, just before you go on, is honestly, don't spend a million years on this application. Just make sure that you're getting your idea across. It's meant to be a conversation starter with us. It's meant to draw our attention and create some interest. And then from there, we invite you in for an actual face-to-face, Zoom to Zoom pitch where you can tell us more.
Yeah. So after you do your 5-minute elevator, and you can also in that elevator, you can bring a presentation. Like, you can send a trailer, you can put a presentation up. Everyone has their own way of doing it. It doesn't matter to us. You don't win points by having a fancy presentation deck. If your project is ready, it sounds good, or your company is like doing great things, it doesn't matter. It's just about your own pitch and what you are talking about. We do about 5 minutes of Q&A with you afterwards. Like, you'll get the panel, we'll ask you a lot of questions. We'll say thanks so much. We try to turn around as fast as possible. So within a week, you should know whether you got in or not. Because once again, as a creator, I hate that refresh moment. like, am I getting an email? Click. Am I getting an email? Click. So you'll find out pretty quickly afterwards. And then, as I said, we'll do an orientation if you get in. If you don't, we'll talk about why. In all honesty, we're really transparent with the why. When I first got here, I wasn't a huge fan of doing that, because I'm like, oh, maybe we shouldn't talk to people about why they didn't get in. But as a creator, it's just easier to know, oh, you know what? Because sometimes it isn't that your project's not fantastic. It's just that we didn't think that you'd have enough support here in the current moment. Like, we've had a video game company come in and we really liked, but there was like, just at the moment in the zone, only a couple of video game companies, and they were in different stages, and we're like, you don't have many peers here. So we just were really honest with them. Like, we love your idea, we'd like to help you specifically, but the gift of the community might be better served if you come back in the fall and pitch, because we suspect there'll be maybe a different number of teams coming in. You might have some more company in your medium. So there's things like that can happen too. We really do our best to do chemistry fits here. Yes. So you get the most out of the cohort itself, which is why we have to do a pretty thorough jury process on it. Okay. I'm just going to go quickly breeze through this form for anyone who's interested. Summarize your idea in 4 to 5 sentences. really just elevator pitch in an answer. Just give me what it is, what interests you, what's exciting about it, why it's needed, the end. Or just give us a really great sell on like what the story is. Your call. As Emilia said, we are not throwing it out at answer one. Please select the option that's closest to your current stage. This is really important to me. I don't want you to BS this. I know it's really one of those tempting questions that people will be like, hey, maybe we should say we're farther. No, we don't. There's no wrong answer here, but we want to know where you're at so we can look at the project accordingly. So it's like, okay, this is where we're at. This is what they need. So just really be honest here. How many people are involved with the project? When we say involved, we mean actually helping you with it. So if you have a friend that's like, hey, maybe I can help you at some point down the road, I wouldn't necessarily count that as your team member. But if you have somebody who's like, I'll do graphic design work for you, I'll do your social media. Obviously, if you have co-creators, that's pretty obvious. But even people on the peripheral, like, so they've signed on to work on the Side Hustle podcast or do graphics for you or do your Twitter account or put that in so it makes it so we understand there's other people attached to this. That, is under 5 dedicated people, over 5 dedicated people category. Myself plus a few friends would be more the like, I have a guy who knows a guy and he might help me out. Tell us a bit about that. But yeah, we're mostly looking for honesty in those answers just to get an idea of where you're going to need help, where you have support, what you need support from us. Bio of yourself, team members involved. So once again, if you have a co-writer, a co-creator, somebody who's truly like hands on the project, put their bio down. If you haven't reached out to anyone, question in the chat, what if you haven't reached out to anyone yet, but you know you need help for XYZ? Another thing, once again, storytellers helping storytellers. We get that, but don't try to fake your way through a pitch, pretending you have the support when you don't have it. We'll see through it. So just be upfront about it, because we're an incubator. Like, we're here to help you. So if you're like, this is where we need help in areas of XYZ, we'll go, oh, okay, well then that's part of the roadmap that you should do, and that's part of the reason why we should help you. So that's something. So another question, can you send us a PDF of the application so we don't have to answer things and process through it in order to see the thing? I can 100% do that, and I'm sorry that I didn't do that previously. That is annoying. I agree. Done. Problem solved immediately. That is a very good point. I actually also really dislike that. Please provide a bio of yourself and any of the team. By the way, you can, just FYI on Google Forms, for those of you who don't know, you can hack that system pretty quick by just putting like X fake email. So in case you do want to just run through that. Yeah, we'll copy it and put it in and put that out. Okay. Emilia, did you say you did it already? Oh, all right.
No, that was Elvina.
No, I said, did you say you put it together already?
Oh, yeah.
The form. Okay. Oh, Elvina did it. I see in the chat. Any projects have yours been acquired, funded? I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Link anything you've done before. It all helps. Like, for example, knowing that Graham Burke, who's a really great storyteller in our zone, has written 3 books. And has 2 side hustle podcasts he does for fun, makes us believe he could get his bigger documentary podcast idea to market. Just gives us an idea of like, oh, you've done that before. So yes, you're in your 50s and you're starting a new whole thing. That doesn't matter, because look, you have a track record of doing things. And you have a track record. It doesn't even have to be like, if you've done something in your life in general. I like a bit of flavor and like what people do, life experience. Drop it in. Let us know, like, hey, look, I was an independent, I had a bakery. So like, you know what? I stick to things.
And then on the other side, if you're totally emerging, share any work you've done in the past, anything you're proud of. I mean, just anything you think we should know about you.
If you're emerging as well, there's lots of different ways to engage with us. And by the way, emerging asterisk, which most people are emerging just in general, not you're 19, not that you're 25, emerging because you haven't written anything yet professionally, but are on the road to do it. Emerging is emerging is emerging. Where do you wish to take this project, and what's standing in your way? What's challenging you with this project? List 3 examples. So all of this section is really where I really, once again, just be honest. What's challenging you with it? If you've got issues, that's where you're pitching an incubator. So get in your mind, it's an incubator, not a grant. So you don't have to do what a lot of us do is like massage the truth for funders. This is the opposite town. We want you to quite literally tell us what you need help with, because that's what we do here. What are you hoping to get out of your experience? Pretty bespoke answer, probably pretty specific answer to you yourself. Challenging and changing with your project is something that I think's important to think about. Like, why is your project different? Why does the world need to see this project? What is important about this? And that might be personally, like, it's important to me to tell local stories. It's important to me to tell this story because it meant something to me. I think that there's not enough first-person narratives in podcasting. I don't think there's enough first-person narratives in film that are about X issue. I don't think that there's representation on screen. I don't think that there's enough stories about, homicidal dentists, whatever you want to talk about in life. Explain why you're passionate about it, and explain what you're doing that's different than other people. That's going to jump on, as Emilia talked about in the beginning of this. There's so much content. There's so many things in the world now. So just talk about why you think you're going to do something that's going to find that audience. What are you specifically looking for us? This is really important to us. I know that maybe some of these times of questions, when you're looking to get into something, you might think, oh, I should talk about how great they are. And like, we want you to talk about what you want out of the experience, because we tailor these things to you. So if you get in the zone, there's a lot of work done behind the scenes to figure out, how do we best serve you? Who can we pair you up with eventually? What teams in the zone already should you immediately talk to? Like, and that all comes from a lot of the application forms in my first advisor session with you, because I'm like, oh, they need help with storytelling mechanics, or they need help with marketing, or they need help with they lack technical support or something in skill sets, but they're looking for people, whatever. That's kind of that question. Is there anything else we should know about you? Submit it here. Jump ball. Like, you're whatever you want. Should we know that you're in university right now? Should we know that you've done some sort of other magical side hustle thing that's really cool? Do you have, what's in your background? Like, so like, it's amazing to me what people leave out of their background that we'll find out about them later. So like, we had a team that I told you about, Answer in Progress, and they have 500,000 subscribers. They won the inaugural Patreon. Creator Jack Conti created a Patreon prize, and that was 50 grand. They won that. Did not mention it in the pitch. I would drop that information to it. I would drop some of, if you have successes or things that are interesting, drop it. There's kind of a humble brag on their part. They were just like, we're not even going to mention that. We think we'll get it no matter what. This is like, good for them. But drop those things to us. It helps us to get an idea of that you're active, you're doing stuff. It's great. What do you, how many documents or demos would work in the submission? So we are only a handful of people. So, less than War and Peace, more than a nap, like more than a placemat. It's fine. Like somewhere between those two range. I honestly think it's what you think needs to get across, knowing that we're not going to be able to read a 100-page Bible. It's just not going to happen. But if you have a pitch deck, mini Bible, anything like that, you're more than welcome to send it. And if you've got like a trailer plus that, feel free. There's no harm in dropping us things, really, to be honest with you. We might not get to deep dive it. So what I guess I would say is lead with the thing that you think's the most important first. In all honesty, because I'm going to be the first point of contact with this, I'm a pretty big nerd on caring about these things for people. So you're kind of safe here. Drop it in. err to the side of more. And then I've been around the block enough to do you a solid and put the thing in front of the rest of the committee that I'm like, this is the this is the short version for all of you to deep dive. This exists if you can get around to it. Yeah, pilot scripts, great. If you're gonna give us pilot scripts though, you really need to do a one sheet, I would say. Just a one sheet would be really helpful. Just like characters, setting, like the usual stuff. That would make life a lot easier for everybody, and I think would allow us to get your project in front of a few more judges and know that they have the time to actually look at something. Feature script, same thing, one sheet. And then what's really going to be important about feature scripts or pilots is what you want from the zone. So what stage are you at personally? Is anyone attached? Do you have any contacts that you think you can pitch to? Do you have a network in mind? So what isn't going to be great here is if you come to us and go, I have a half an hour show, I have no experience in the industry, and I'm pitching to Netflix. Well, okay. That is going to be a harder sell for us to take you into the zone and incubate you, because you might need a different set of help. Like you might need, hey, you should do a short film first, or you need to do something like a web series, or you need to present something that's manageable. If you have an amazing idea, like I said, caveats with everything. If you have this like just brilliant script, then yeah, you know what? Everything's possible, and we'll take a look at it. But we do have to make 8 choices. So not to say we don't take long shots, but it's not to say we're only trying to take things that will make it. But we are trying to take things that people are the most dedicated to and the people that we think are going to see it through. So just make sure it's clear in the pitch before we get to your 120-page script. As much as I'm dedicated to this job, there are only so many hours in the day. Bible, if you have it, sure. If you haven't created one yet, one sheet's enough.
Yeah.
One sheet's enough. I don't want to start creating, once again, coming from that, been there, done that phase. Creating a whole slew of documents can be kind of heavy lifting.
Apply where you are now. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't make extra work for yourself, but try to really use the application, the space, the text there to kind of frame what you're doing for us.
Both of us have been on a lot of juries in the industry, and both of us have run festivals. So like, also, I will say this in the nicest way possible. We can smell puffery, so it's not going to really work anyway. So don't worry about trying to be like, I'm, I have X and Y possibilities around. So yeah, do that. Also, remember, you can raise your hand as well if you don't want to use the chat. I mean, you can unmute you if you want to actually ask us a verbal question. Feel free to do that, and I'll do that. I just wanted to make it easier for everyone to not worry about their mic accidentally coming on. Yeah, so are there any other questions that I can help anybody with that Emilia could answer on the Ryerson side of things, or anything like that? Let me know if we've created. So if anyone has any pitch conversations too, feel free to ask that now, because we're not going to do a second info session around the pitch. So if you think you might get in with the application and you're curious about any pitch tips, feel free to ask them specifically as well. Otherwise, if you have any zone questions, I'll just jump ball in general. We're here still, but otherwise, yeah. Q&A is about 5 minutes after the pitch. A pitch in an exact pitch. That's funny. Hanlon, we've had a conversation, and I enjoy your sense of humor. What are you looking for in a pitch is basically this. I know I said this before, and I know it's sort of vague. So if you want me to deep dive, I should say, we can. But what I mean by this is you just have to separate yourself from the pack in 5 minutes. So here's my idea. Here's why maybe it doesn't exist in the marketplace, why it's different than the other things you're thinking of immediately when I pitched you this. Here's who the audience is. We're really big on you knowing who your audience is. We help you with that here, but if you know that going into a pitch, it helps you a lot. you don't know who your audience is, but you just have an amazing story, like that's true too. Not everything is niche. Not everything can be aimed at a certain audience specifically. So if you just have a great story, then that's the focus of the pitch for you, for me. Like I think you should lean in on, this is my really great story. I'm going to hook you with the story in 5 minutes. That's enough. If you have a company, talk to us about your competitors. Talk to us about why your product has a way to market, why your organization has a base that desperately needs help. Basically, just distinguish yourself as best as possible in an engaging way. Not everyone's great at pitching, so we do our best to look at the materials and look at the idea beforehand. This isn't an extroverted talent competition, so pitches matter, but the content matters. If you're nervous, if you're bad at this stuff, it's okay. We'll help you with that too in the zone. It's more about trying to get the idea across. You know, I remember somebody showed me Shonda's masterclass where she's like, I'm so bad at this. I just read off a page and I have to memorize questions about, like, I really like compliments. She memorizes compliments and goes into the room, and no matter what it is, she's like, I love your shoes. And she does it 2 times fast with music on until she gets it in her head. So there's all these little tips and tricks people use. We'll put out a couple Instagram things too, on tips and tricks from our side of things. Mostly answer the questions of like, how many, if it's a show, if it's a movie, if it's a whatever, if it's a podcast, if it's a game. Length is important. Emilia will always ask you that. I've been enough of these with her where she'll be like, what's the so if you show up with a show pitch and you don't tell her how many episodes, what the length of the episode is, it is the first question she's going to ask you, of like, wait, I don't know what I'm talking about yet, you know. Don't forget that simple stuff. Sometimes people deep dive their story so well they forget like basically what they are doing. Format dictates a lot. Yeah. So what we usually see is people come in, a lot of people do put some sort of presentation up and share their screen with us. Once again, if you're great at storytelling and just talking to people, or you've got a really great idea, we don't need it. But sometimes I think, I won't say a crutch, but it's an aid, we'll call it. I think having something on screen so we can look at something, that helps. If you have images attached to it, if you have, you just want to run your one sheet with us, that's okay. Really just find the thing that makes you set out. If you're really great at this, if you're a great pitcher, I would lean into that talent, because it can definitely be seductive on people who join and watch it and go, okay, great. A lot of the stuff will be the materials that you submitted though. So the application does go a long way. Being real with you, you can actually tank your pitch and still get into the zone based on how great your application form was, because we're trying not to judge you solely on how great you are at a pitch format. But it is something we work on a lot at the zone, because I'll be really real with everyone. People are not great at pitching. It really is a skill set that few people possess. So it's something. No, it's all right, Helen. That's a good question. And there is no direct answer. It will be as many people as we think are ready to pitch. So if we get 15 applications and we think, oh man, I can't differentiate any of these are all great on the page, we'll carve more time out of our schedule and take multiple pitch days. So that's how it works. If there are only, like, you know, if there's like, say 50 applications and we think we can only help 10 people will get in to pitch. So yeah, it really does revolve around the applications. What is a little bit more difficult for us though, if we get a lot of great quality, is you're going to have less options, unfortunately, to pick dates. We do our best for you, but it is what it is. That's a really good question, but I can't answer it for you for the recovery. I can answer it for you, but it sounds relevant. The recovery cohort is how we ran the last 2 sessions. This is the first time we've been let back to Transmedia Zone doing its own thing since last summer. I was new here in October, full time. I was their strategic advisor before that. So I think we got around 30 to 40 in.
I think that's usually the right.
Yeah.
I think that's typically where we fall.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'm just trying to see if anybody else has any other questions. Yeah, no worries. Like I appreciate the compliment, Amy. Yeah, we're doing our best. I really dislike that. Emilia will tell you, I go on like full on rants about it. I really dislike when the industry is like, it's about the form. Why? Like,
Yeah.
on what level of storytelling is the form going to be like a distinguishing factor on who's good at this or not? So yeah, let's not go there. Yeah, you can perform the form. You can do live takes. Feel free to
Exactly.
do a karaoke pitch. We're open for it. Okay. I
All
feel
right.
like we're dying down with questions. So I'm going to say one thing that's possible, but I don't want to get your pitches in, get your application forms in. We'll put up the pitch week dates are in the body of those Instagram posts, by the way. So if you take a look at even today's, you'll see the dates in them. And you'll take a look next week, Monday, as I said, 11:59. So it's Cinderella time. Take a look, try to get it in before that date. And then when you get the form in, we'll do our best to turn around. It'll be a first come, first serve thing. So whoever got their form in earliest gets a better pick of the pitch times. So that's the only incentive we have for you to get your application form in early. Other than that, you can follow us on social media for updates on where things are going. We're pretty active in our stories, and we're pretty active on Twitter. So you'll see, hey, next week's pitch week. Hey, our pitches are going today, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to email and get some feedback, I just want to give you a heads up. If your application doesn't go through, I'm going to have to do a day of that. Like I might have to book a lot of those calls in one session. So if you want feedback on just like why the application didn't even get to the pitch factor, I'm going to have to, that might take a while. I might have to, because I've got other things on the plate. So because there's going to be more of you that obviously didn't do that, but I will try our best to give you feedback on those things as well. If so, because as I said, there's always just things that just you didn't get to pitch because of X, Y, and Z. So with that, I think we are done here unless anybody else has it. Oh, you know what? This is something else we should have said, which is super sadistic at this point. This is recording, so I thought I said this at the top. Maybe some people came in late and didn't hear me, so I apologize. This is available, so you can rewatch it, turn it into a podcast, pitch it to us. Feel free. It'll be really entertaining, I'm sure. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to seeing your pitches.
Very excited. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Very gloomy. What day is it today? Wednesday?
What is time? 2021.
What is time? Yeah.
Okay. On that note, I'm going to stop the recording.